Krishna prasthaya putale Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna prasthaya putale Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Goura Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Vishatharine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Vishatharine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gatkatha Shri Vasadi Goura Bhaktarinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gatkatha Shri Vasadi Goura Bhaktarinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gatkatha Shri Vasadi Goura Bhaktarinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gatkatha Shri Vasadi Goura Bhaktarinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gatkatha Shri Vasadi Goura Bhaktarinda Jaya Goura Bhaktarinda Jaya Goura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Goura Nitai, Jaya Goura Nitai, Jaya Goura Nitai, Jaya Goura Nitai. Goura Nitai, Jaya Goura Nitai, Jaya Goura Nitai, Jaya Goura Nitai, Jaya Nitai, Sachi Sundar Nitai, Sachi Sundar Nitai, Sachi Sundar, Jaya Nitai, Sachi Sundar, Jaya Nitai, Sachi Sundar Nitai, Sachi Sundar, Nitai Sachi Sundar, Jaya Nitai Sachi Sundar, Jaya Giri Govardhan, 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 Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Gurudev, Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Gurudev. Jai Hare Krishna. Welcome to the lockdown program. Welcome Varshana Mataji Dharma Samir. We are a very small group tonight. Varshana will come in later. Amit will come in later. Nalini can't come. From Ben, we haven't heard. Even so, I spoke to him yesterday. Amar, I forgot. There was also something. And so we are just a group of 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 tonight. So never mind. Today is a very auspicious day. I hope, first of all, you're all well in Africa, Zamir, and in Oadby, Rashmi Mataji, and around Birmingham, Dharm. So what's an auspicious day today? Who knows? What's a special day today? Anyone?
It is, I know one of it, there must be more. It is the beginning of it's the last 5 days of Kartik month. So the last 5 days of Kartik month, it's got a name, Pancha something. So out of Kartik, these 5 days are today is the first day. I don't know any other
No,
significance, but
it's
I'm sure
tomorrow
it
is the first day.
is it tomorrow?
Yes, Bhishma Panchaka. When is
Vishwa,
Ekadashi?
yeah.
When is Ekadashi according to you?
Actually, India was doing Ekadashi today, so they are
Yes.
calculating the 5 days from today. We
Yes.
are doing Ekadashi from tomorrow, so
Yes, correct. And tomorrow is Ekadashi and tomorrow is Bhishma Panchaka as well.
yeah, okay.
So, why is it important that Ekadashi is celebrated locally? Because the sun is rising locally. Ekadashi is calculated according to the sun, the tithis according to the sun and the moon. So if we take the Indian sunrise, moonrise, that doesn't make much sense because that is 5.5 hour time difference. Some people insisting they want to follow Ekadashi according to the Indian calendar. Most times it is the same, but sometimes, like tomorrow, it falls on a different day because of the sunrise. And so if someone wants to absolutely follow the Indian Ekadashi calendar, then he has to follow that calendar in every respect. Then he has to also rise in the morning according to Indian calendar, which is 12:30 in the morning. So, I mean, if someone wants to follow the Ekadashi according to Indian calendars, then he should go the full circle and also get up when the sun is rising in India. But of course, we don't do that. And it is easy to understand that the sun is rising here at a different time. So that changes sometimes the day of Ekadashi. Tomorrow is such a day. Indian calendar, Ekadashi is today. According to the local calendar, calculated for Leicester and the rest of the UK, it is tomorrow, and tomorrow is Bhishma Panchaka as well. So what is the special day today? So Bhishma Panchaka? No, that's tomorrow. So what's the significant day today? That's my question. Anyone, Samir? What's the special day today?
I think, Hare Krishna, everybody, by the way. Then what pronouns everyone. I just, I was thinking the same, because it's Tulsi Vivaha, but Tulsi Vivaha is tomorrow as well, so I don't know.
Today is the disappearance day of Srila Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Who is Srila Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj? Rashmi, you surely know that. Or Zamir, who is Kishore Das Babaji?
Is he the guru of Bhakti Vinod?
No,
No.
not
So
Bhakti
Prabhupada's
Vinod.
is Bhakti Vinod.
Bhakti Vinod, spiritual master, is Jagannath Das Babaji.
Okay,
But
yeah.
we're speaking of Kishore Das Babaji. Yeah? Welcome, Ben. Who is Kishore Das Babaji? Anyone? Today is his disappearance. Kishore Das Babaji. Who is Kishore Das Babaji? But that we must know. Ben, who is Kishore Das Babaji? That's very important.
He's one of the gurus in the disciplic succession. He's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Swami's spiritual master.
Absolutely right. Right? We pictures of parampara, pictures in the temple. There is on the left is Srila Prabhupada, then comes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Third one from the left is Kishore Das Babaji. And then is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And sometimes devotees put another picture, which is Jagannath Das Babaji. So his disappearance. So I just posted something in the timeline we're going to read. And Rashmi, you like life stories, so I will ask you to please read that short sketch of his life of Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Are you ready, Rashmi? The microphone is on.
I'm just trying to, I find it difficult to do both things at once. I find it really difficult.
Both things. What's the second thing?
Okay, now, yeah, I mean, stop. Trying to do both in the same device. Anyway, I've opened it now.
Okay.
The next in the parampara, after and is an associate of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, a great Paramhans Babaji by the name of Goura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Technically, he was a disciple of Bhagvat Das Babaji Maharaj, who was a disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. In 1897, oh, it's very long. In 1897, Goura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj came to Mayapur Navadvip Dham from Sri Vrindavan Dham, where he was accredited the exalted title Bhajananandi. Sri Bhakti Vinod, seeing the transcendental behavior of Babaji, would use him as an example of nirpeksha, indifference, as his level of renunciation was beyond belief. This Vaishnav saint's life was an example of utter humility and poverty, the true attributes of a Vaishnav. Goura Kishore never accepted any material object from anyone. For his clothing, he used the discarded loin cloths from corpses left on the banks of the Ganga. For food, he would collect rice by begging, soak it in river water and garnish it with salt and chili. He never asked favors from anyone and lived a fully detached life, devoid of all possessions. Very little information is available about the past life of Goura Kishore, except that he was born in a Vaishya family in the village of Bagjana near Tape Khola on the bank of the Padma. As a householder, Goura Kishore was known by the name Vanshidas, different from Vamsidas Babaji. At that time, he was engaged in some agricultural trade, and from the income, he took care of his family, wife and family, honestly. After the death of his wife, Goura Kishore renounced his home and went to Vrindavan, where he was initiated into Vairagi Vesh by Bhagavad Das Babaji, one of the foremost disciples of Jagannath Das Babaji. Srila Goura Kishore lived on Madhukari, begging and slept beneath a tree. He would lie prostrate, offering his humble obeisances to the residents of Vraj, considering them as embodiments of Lord Krishna. He offered his obeisances to the flowers, trees, and land around him. He spent about 30 years at Vraj Mandal serving the deities there. Afterwards, perhaps by the direction of the Supreme Lord, he left for Navadvip. During his stay at Navadvip, Goura Kishore underwent various transformations of spiritual moods. Sometimes he danced on the banks of the Ganga, chanting Gaur, Gaur, while at other times he would lie on the ground in an unconscious state. He joyfully moved throughout the groves located on the banks of the Ganga, considering them sites of the divine sports of Sri Radha Govind. His only clothing was a strip of cloth round his waist, and often went totally naked. He chanted japa on beads, or sometimes knotted a cloth and used that as a substitute for japa beads. Occasionally he went to Dvip to listen to Bhakti Vinod Thakur recite Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Babaji Maharaj would often visit Bhakti Vinod. During his last days in retirement, absorbed in Krishna Katha, he would hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam at Bhakti Vinod's house, and they would discuss together. Though Babaji Maharaj could neither read nor write, he was regarded as vastly learned and self-realized. His only possessions were the tulsi beads round his neck and the japa mala he kept in his hands. Sometimes he wore no tulsi mala on his neck and would chant on knotted cloths as beads. Such was his renunciation. Sometimes he would live under an old, broken, overturned boat, and other times he would scatter fish bones around the place he occasionally used as his bhajan kutir to make materialists think he was a fish eater, and thus they would not disturb him. But by his pure bhajan, he purified the three worlds. He was the guru of Srila Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Goswami, the founder of Chaitanya Math and Gaudiya Math. In 1898, when Bhakti Vinod's son, who was now residing in Godrumadvip, in Navadvip Dham first came in contact with the person who was to be his spiritual master, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the crest jewel of Avdutas, was wearing a tiger skin hat and carrying a basket with puja paraphernalia inside. He offered the boy 4 or 5 pieces of rope for chanting his rounds on, and a tilak stamp for marking his body with Hare Krishna carved on it. Bhaktivinoda later told his son, "You must take initiation from Babaji Maharaj and don't return to his house if you don't." Gaur Kishore Das Babaji used to walk across a bridge at the same time daily. So on one occasion, Bhaktivinoda's son, Siddhanta Saraswati, blocked his path and in all humility said, "If you don't give me initiation, then I will finish my life by throwing this useless body off the bridge." Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj didn't want any disciples. He himself had taken Shiksha from Bhaktivinoda, and this was Bhaktivinoda's dear son, Siddhanta Saraswati. Told him now his father had instructed him to come to Babaji or not return home. So in 1900, Babaji Maharaj gave him the name Varshabhanavi Devi Daitya Das. He then gave his new initiate the tiger skin, hat and basket that had been given to Gaur Kishore by his spiritual master Bhagavad Das Babaji, which in turn had received from Jagannath Das Babaji. In 1908, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj lost his external eyesight, so he then stopped traveling and just chanted and performed worship of Krishna. Being aloof from external consciousness, sometimes he would not dress his body. Instead, he would sit in his bhajan kutir, internally absorbed in Krishna's pastimes, and in a very deep voice, be heard calling the names of the gopis of Vrindavan. Once Srila Vrishbhanavi Devi Daitya Das Siddhant Saraswati offered to take Babaji Maharaj to Calcutta to see an eye specialist, but he refused, saying, "Never, I will never go to material world." His disciple protested, "But in Calcutta I could serve you nicely. You won't have to undergo any inconvenience." But Babaji Maharaj was adamant, declaring, "I will never accept this service. Better I throw myself in the Saraswati and drown." Once Babaji Maharaj turned up at the Yog Pit, Lord Chaitanya's birthplace, at 2 in the morning. Amazed, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati inquired how he got there in the pitch black of night. Babaji Maharaj replied, "Someone brought me here." "Who could have brought you such a distance at this time?" inquired Bhakti Siddhanta. Finally, his mind concluded, "It must have been Krishna who personally brought you here, or else how did you cross the Ganga? How did you find your way across the dark fields?" But Babaji Maharaj would not answer more than, "One person brought me across the river, that's all." One day, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj wrapped his body and 2 feet with a cloth. Sitting covered like this, he said, "Many people, after being informed by others, come here to collect the dust from my feet. I tell them I am not a Vaishnav. If you go to the vicinity where there are Vaishnavs with their feet pretentiously decorated and extended to touch, you can have unlimited dust. How can I bless you? I don't have barfi or sandesh or rasgulla or even sweet words. How can I bless you?" Nowadays, people are interested in spiritual masters who give these things: wealth, wife, good wife, sweet words. These cheating things are now taken as anukul, favorable. Every virtuous person looked forward to rendering service to Srila Gaur Kishore. However, he rarely allowed anyone the chance to serve him. Once, Manindra Chandra Nandi, Maharaj of Kasim Bazar, sent a distinguished messenger to escort Gaur Kishore to the former's palace. Gaur Kishore, however, did not accept the Maharaj's invitation, saying that if he visited the palace, he may feel tempted by the wealth of the Maharaj, which may result in a strained relation between the two. Hence, Gaur
Do you
Kishore
want someone
suggested that
else?
instead...
Huh? Maybe someone else can read a bit further.
Yes.
Samir, what about you? Hence, Gaur Kishore suggested.
Very well. Where are we? Since hence Gaur Kishore suggested that instead of him visiting the palace, let the Maharaj free himself completely from the shackles of wealth by donating everything he owned to his relatives, and then come to live with Gaur Kishore in a specially prepared shed where both of them could practice Hari Bhajan in peace. Srila Kishore was very selective about accepting invitations for food. He believed that partaking of food here and there could adversely affect the spiritual life of a devotee. Once a devotee named Haran Babu partook of prasad offered at the festival held at Bhajan Gurdeep at Navadvip. From this, Gokishore stopped communicating with Haran for 3 days. On the 4th day, Gokishore explained that the prasad of the above festival had been financed by a woman of questionable profession, a brahmachari, one who is moved by other men. Once, on the eve of Sanatan Goswami's Disappearance Day, Gokishore decided to celebrate the occasion. A devotee attending him asked who would provide them with the materials for the celebration. Srila Gokishore replied, "Remember not to speak to anyone about it. We shall miss a meal and continue around the clock, chanting the holy name." This could be the typical festival for those of us who have taken the vow of poverty. Narendra Kumar Sen, a resident of Argatala, Tripura, once approached Gokishore to learn about Guru Pranali or Siddha Pranali. Gokishore told him, the Supreme Lord cannot be realized through worldly knowledge. Only through chanting of the holy name can the true nature of the Lord be revealed. As the Lord is revealed from the letters comprising the Nam, the devotee gradually begins to understand his own nature and becomes acquainted with Seva. Once a physician told Gokishore that he intended to move the Navadvip and take up charitable practices. Gokishore advised the physician that if he truly desired to live in Navadvip, then he should give up the plan for charitable practice, because it would only encourage materially minded people to save money. Those who are sincerely practice Hari Bhajan should never get distracted by the chains of welfare activities. A young seeker wearing only a gopina once stayed with Gokishore for some days. Later he arranged through the agency of an employee of a female estate owner to obtain 5 kathas of land as donation for the woman. When Gokishore heard about this, he was extremely annoyed. Navadvip Dham is beyond this material world. How can a worldly landowner dare to hold here and even think he can donate 5 kathas out of it? A mere grain of sand of the transcendental Navadvip is more valuable than all the precious gems in this world put together. Moreover, how advanced could this young gopina-clad devotee be if he dares to collect so much land in lieu of his bhajan merit? Once a devotee offered some sweets to Lord Gauranga and then took the offering to Gokishore, urging him to partake of it. Gokishore told the devotee, those who are non-vegetarian, those who commit adultery, or offer food to Lord Gauranga with a particular motive, their offerings never reach Lord Gauranga and are never sanctified as prasad. Srila Gokishore regularly begged for rice, after which he would cook the rice, offer it, and partake of the prasad. He never touched any foodstuff offered by someone else. Once during monsoon, Gokishore stayed in the rest house of Fulia Navadvip. Some prasadam was left in a vessel for him to respect later. Meanwhile, a snake passed by the vessel, and a woman there happened to notice it. When Gokishore sat down to take prasad, The woman appeared there and informed him about the snake. Kishore, however, firmly stated that he would not touch the prasad until the woman left. After the woman left, Kishore said, "Look how Maya works, taking the form of compassion. My attempts to hit deep into her target slowly. Maya can assume countless forms. She always prevents a mortal being from practicing Hari Bhajan." Chiri Babu and his wife once ardently requested Kishore to stay in their house at Navadvip. Kishore was moved by the sincere devotion and finally agreed to oblige them on the condition that he would live only in their toilet room, where he would perform Hari Bhajan. Chiri Babu tried to persuade him to change his mind, but Kishore remained firm. Chiri Babu reluctantly arranged to have the toilet thoroughly cleaned, and Kishore used it for Hari Bhajan. A realized soul can practice Hari Bhajan anywhere in an unconcerned manner, and wherever he resides, that place becomes Vaikuntha. Srila Kishore was highly spiritually advanced soul. He never allowed deceitful practices or any discussion which was not within the purview of the holy books. One day, when a devotee questioned Kishore about a well-known reciter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, who was in the habit of chanting Goura, Goura, Kishore remarked, "He doesn't say Goura, Goura, rather he means to say more, money, money. Those who recite Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for payment are not entitled to chant the name of the Supreme Lord." Srila Kishore never delivered discourses openly, yet his spotless character drew everyone to him. Upon meeting Kishore, even a staunch materialist would be inclined to take up Hari Bhajan. On the 22nd of June 1914, Bhaktivinoda Thakur passed from this world into his samadhi, deep meditation on Lord Krishna in Bhakti Bhavan. And then, on November the 17th, 1915, Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the auspicious Uttanagdashi, also left this world. His body was placed in Samadhi tomb 16 years later. Due to flooding, the Samadhi had to be moved. There was a claimor of local Babajis trying to claim the Samadhi, but the bold Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati told everyone frankly, "I'm the only disciple of the Paramahamsa Babaji Maharaj. Even though I have not accepted sannyas, I am a celibate brahmachari, and by the grace of Babaji Maharaj, I am not secretly addicted to abdominal habits or involved in fornication, as some monkeys like people are. If there is someone amongst the people here present who is renunciate of stainless character, then he can have Babaji Maharaj Samadhi. We have no objection to that. He who within the last year, or the last 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, or at least within the last 3 days, has not had illicit connection with a woman, will be able to touch this spiritual blissful body. If anyone else touches it, he will be completely ruined." Hearing these words, the inspector of police, who had come to judge for a fair and honest decision, said, "How will evidence be had for this?" Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati replied, "I have faith in their word." At this, one by one, all the bogus Babajis slipped away without a word. Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai, Hare Krishna. What a beautiful story. Hare Krishna. Did you like that?
Very nice.
So,
Very good.
what a renunciate, what an avadut, what a soul. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's go to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Let's continue Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So, I think we are on 127. I will post the link just now. 127. It's in the chat. 127, and I would like to ask Ben to recite the Om Namo and the verse and read. That would be nice, Ben. Are you ready, Ben? Text 7. First canto, second chapter, text 7.
Okay.
The microphone is yours.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 7. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Vyananam Chayat Vyanam Chayat Ahayatukam. Translation. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, to be like something material emotional affairs, may argue that in revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic powers, and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended. According to them, bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, is meant for those who cannot perform the high-grade activities. Generally, it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for the Sudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent woman class. But that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord, and it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. To achieve the contact of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is a great science, and it is open for all living beings, including the Sudras, the Vaishyas, women, and even those of lower than the low-born Sudras. So what to speak of the high-class men, like the qualified Brahmins and the great self-realized kings? The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity, etc., are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti cult. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization.
Okay, can I stop you here? Just a question comes up. Knowledge and detachment. Do we know the Sanskrit terms which Srila Prabhupada used and Shastra is using again and again? for knowledge and detachment. Anyone?
Gyan.
Yes.
Vairagya.
Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya, that is proper renunciation. Recently we spoke about renunciation which someone feels at the funeral of a friend or a family member, renunciation which people feel at the funerals. They feel, oh yes, I'll give up my material attachments, but that doesn't last very long. That is called Falgu Vairagya, temporary, like at the cremation ground. And there is another Vairagya, Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation. So monkey appears to be very renounced. He has no clothes and he's living in the forest, and he's almost like a Vairagi, but he has dozens of wives and engaging in sense gratification in that way. So we don't want Falgu Vairagya nor Markata Vairagya, we want Yukta Vairagya. Okay, let's carry on.
Process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual, and the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether. As men with a poor fund of knowledge think, nice karma means not undertaking activities that will produce bad or good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The Bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the Bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things, and he becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the Bhakti cult, being the supermost occupation of the living being, leads him out of material sense enjoyment. That is the sign of a pure devotee. He is not a fool, nor is he engaged in the inferior energies, nor does he have material values. This is not possible by dry reasoning. It actually happens by the grace of the Almighty. In conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all other good qualities, namely detachment, etc. But one who has only knowledge or detachment is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of the Bhakti cult. Bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being.
Thank you very much. What a beautiful purport. Ben, could you just summarize one or 2 points, just in not more than half a minute? What particularly that latter part of the purpose that is very significant.
Well, there's some philosophical schools. They tend to treat the cult of Bhakti Yoga with derision. They think it's an inferior process for lower class people. devotion, then they take it to be like sentimentalism, especially the Mayavadis and the impersonalists. So they kind of look down on it and dismiss it, So Prabhupada is making the point here that in actuality, that bhakti is the opposite to what they actually think, and it's a superior form of spiritual realization that is open to anyone to engage in if they so desire. There's no restrictions for any kind of material designation. So it's fully open, and Prabhupada is also is making the point here as well about this bhakti is the actual occupation, he said, of the soul. So it's for our benefit if we engage in it. It's the highest thing that we can do, and by engaging in this process, we automatically achieve yukta vairagya. It's a byproduct of it. You don't have to seek it separately. It just happens in an automatic way. The more we engage in devotional service to the Lord, then we simultaneously become detached from all material attachments.
Okay, great. These were the two distinctive points, yes, you made. Very great. Now I have a question. It is said in the purport about where you just stopped. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert. What does that mean, Rashmi? Why people think devotees engaging in devotional service to become inert?
So bhakti is not inertia. Inertia means inactivity. Bhakti is activity. All the 9 aspects of devotional service is full activity, but here the activity is now for the favor to please the Lord. Whatever is favorable for the Lord, we do. So that is, it's not inertia. Chanting is not inertia, but people think that many people feel bhakti means you just sit down and in one corner and chant. But actually nowhere it's said that you just sit down in one corner. Chanting is one aspect of it, but there are other sevas and loads of other things which is part of bhakti.
Fantastic. Yes, absolutely. Some people do think, and I had encountered people like that, they think bhakti means you're sitting in a cave in the Himalayas, leaving everything behind. So like Babaji, Kishore, or sitting at home and chanting all day long, not caring for family, children, and duties. No, that is not what bhakti is all about. The other point, just a little bit down, it says not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Because every activity has a reaction. How is it that Srila Prabhupada says not good or bad effects? Does everybody wants good effects? Why give them up? Samir. That puzzles people. We understand giving up bad effects, but why good and bad effects? Why giving up the good as well? What do you say, Samir?
Because we have to go on beyond the 3 modes, and obviously one of them is the mode of goodness. We have to transcend them onto the mode of the transcendental. We have to be on the transcendental form.
Yes. More than that.
More than that is because if we are doing these certain things, then we we reach those, we reap the benefits, but also the best form of a pious activity is devotional service. So that's what we need to get to.
Yes, good or bad effect means good or bad karma, right?
Yes.
So why giving up good karma? Bad karma we want to all give up. But why give up good karma, Ben?
Well, whether it's good or bad karma, it doesn't really matter, because in the material world, everything is inauspicious in the sense that if it's not connected to Krishna, it's entangling you. So if you have good karma, you have to experience the results of this good karma. To experience the results of karma, you need a body. So it therefore perpetuates your time in this material world. So we have to get free from both.
Absolutely, absolutely. It just prolongs the time. Of course, there are many. They're not that interested in pure devotional service, but they're interested of being promoted to the higher planetary systems, and they would definitely want to take credit for their good karma and live it out in the higher planetary systems, not knowing or not caring maybe that they will have to come back here and take birth again. So, yes. Any questions? That was a very nice purport. Any questions? Anyone? No? So, okay, let's move on. Rashmi, text 8.
Text 8. Dharmasvanusthita pumasam visvakshena kathasuyaha notpadayet yadi ratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama eva hi kevalam. The occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. Purport. There are different occupational activities in terms of man's different conceptions of life. To the gross materialist who cannot see beyond the gross material body, there is nothing beyond senses. Therefore, his occupational activities are limited to concentrated and extended selfishness. Concentrated selfishness centers around the personal body. This is generally seen amongst lower animals. Extended selfishness is manifested in human societies and centers around the family, society, community, nation, and world with a view to gross bodily comfort. Above these gross materialists are the mental speculators who hover aloft in the mental spheres, and their occupational duties involve making poetry and philosophy or propagating some ism with the same aim of selfishness limited to the body and the mind. But above the body and mind is the dormant spirit soul, whose absence from the body makes the whole range of bodily and mental selfishness completely null and void. But less intelligent people have no information of the needs of the spirit soul. Because foolish people have no information of the soul and how it is beyond the purview of the body and mind, they are not satisfied in the performance of their occupational duties. The question of the satisfaction of the self is raised herein. The self is beyond the gross body and subtle mind. He is the potent active principle of the body and mind. Without knowing the need of the dormant soul, one cannot be happy simply with emolument of the body and mind. Body and mind are but superfluous outer coverings of the spirit soul. The spirit soul's needs must be fulfilled. Simply by cleaning the cage of the bird, one does not satisfy the bird. One must actually know the needs of the bird himself. The need of the spirit soul is that he wants to get out of the limited sphere of material bondage and fulfill his desires for complete freedom. He wants to get out of the covered walls of the greater universe. He wants to see free light and the spirit. The complete freedom is achieved when he meets the complete spirit, personality of Godhead. There is dormant affection for God within everyone. Spiritual existence is manifested through the gross body and mind in the form of perverted affection for gross and subtle matter. Therefore, we have to engage ourselves in occupational engagements that will evoke our divine consciousness. This is possible only by hearing and chanting the divine activities of the Supreme Lord. And any occupational activity which does not help one to achieve attachment for hearing and chanting the transcendental message of Godhead is said herein to be simply a waste of time. This is because other occupational activities, whatever ism they may belong to, cannot give liberation to the soul. Even the activities of the salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. The gross materialist can practically see that his material gain is only limited to time and space, either in this world or in the other. Even if he goes to Swarglok, he will find no permanent abode for his hankering soul. The hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. There were at least two distinct points. Can you just summarize them in just a few sentences?
The last line of that verse, Sanskrit verse, Shram eva hi kevalam. That's a very famous line in India. A lot of people, a lot of sadhus will repeat this. Shram means labor. So what is it? Is it Sutta Goswami who's speaking at this moment? Maybe it is it Sutta Goswami or is it the sages? So Sutta Goswami is saying that in everything else that we do in this world, other than bhakti, so hearing and chanting, everything else that we do is all waste of time, is shram eva hi kevalam. That means it is useless labor, all going to go waste. When we die, all this will be left behind and the soul will be still left hankering, only to take up another body and only go through the process again. Even if we do good acts, even then it is useless because we'll go to heaven and there also we will be unhappy after a while. And then when that bank balance of heaven is finished, then we will come back and again start the whole process again.
Well, thank you. That's very interesting what you said. Said in India, people know that phrase Shrava eva hi kevalam. Amongst devotees, that is a very famous line. Shrava eva hi kevalam, very famous. But I did not know that that is widespread in India as well. So yes, that is a famous phrase. So there were I had a few questions. What is a salvationist? Srila Prabhupada speaks of the salvationists. Even the activities of the salvationists are considered to be useless because of their failure to pick up the fountainhead of all liberties. What are the salvationists? Who are they? Anyone? Samir, what do you think?
Sorry, Prabhu, could you repeat the question? I've lost connection here at the moment.
Oh, right,
so.
okay. It says here, even the activities of the salvationists are considered to be Shrava eva hi kevalam, useless waste of time. So what isn't salvationists?
Salvation, people who take salvation, salvationists.
Who could that refer to?
They're referring to, are they, I don't know.
Anyone? Ben, Rashmi?
Is it referring to impersonalism?
I would think so. Liberation is...
Isn't salvation same as liberation?
Yes, mukti. Mukti. Many people want mukti, and they think that is the ultimate goal. In India, anyway, you ask anyone, what's your goal? Anyone, most people know that mukti, liberation. But mukti, liberation, if we cannot evoke some attachment to the transcendental message of the Lord, then even the mukti is quite useless. Mukti, that is Brahma Buddha platform. The mukti, then when liberation is achieved, people think that's the end of it. No, that's just the beginning. After mukti, after salvation, it's not the end game. It's a beginning, because then devotional service really starts. Because by then we're freed from the three modes of material nature, and we can offer Krishna some pure service. That's a pure devotional platform. We can offer Krishna some service without thinking of ourselves, what we want in return. Anything before mukti, before liberation, there is always a consideration about ourselves. But after mukti, we are freed from the modes of material nature. Then we can offer Krishna beautiful service without interference of goodness, passion, and ignorance, without wanting anything back, just wanting to please Krishna. So mukti is not the last word. It's a starting point for devotional service. That's very important, because there's so many people who think, in particular, as you mentioned, Ben, the impersonalists, they think mukti is the ultimate goal. It's not. So, at the beginning, earlier in the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks of selfishness, and he speaks of a concentrated selfishness, which is just like animal platform, just being concerned about oneself, about eating, sex, sleeping, fighting, and so on. So, but why is he saying family, country, community, that is extended selfishness? How can it be selfishness to look after one's family? How can that be characterized as selfish, extended selfishness? Who can say? For me.
It's extended selfishness because you're still, it's still giving you, it's giving you pleasure by doing that.
Yes. Yes, you could say so, because we are still, I mean, it's a very honorable thing in society. Oh, he's a family man, he's looking after his family. It's great, because, I mean, there are people that don't look after their family. That's absolutely worse and disgusting even. But it's still selfish, extended selfish, because I just work for my family. But I am part of that family, right? It's not that I'm not part, I'm looking after someone else's family. That would be something else, where you're not part, you don't profit. If you're looking after someone else's family, you're not profit from it. But because I'm working so hard and providing for my family, but you are part of that family, so that motivation comes because you're part of that family. Remove you from that family, and we have that experience. If a couple divorces, for instance, removes that family, and the partner is not anymore interested in that family, because he is not part of that family. He doesn't benefit from that providing for that family. So therefore, that's extended selfishness. So basically, Srila Prabhupada makes that point again, which last few verses has been made, that it's all Shravayeva he gave alam. It's all a useless waste of time if we cannot invoke with whatever we do, with our occupational duties, if we cannot evoke attraction for Krishna. That is the purpose. Attraction for Krishna. Any There is another nice point. Srila Prabhupada writes, the hankering soul must be satisfied by the perfect scientific process of perfect devotional service, right at the end. The hankering soul. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a space rocket. Astronauts always have to come back because they do not find shelter, right? There is not a colony on the moon. Okay, we're going to the moon and we're going to stay there. Bye-bye, we never come back. It's not like that. There's no shelter. The impersonalist has also to come back, even from the Brahmachoti, the Brahman effulgence, because he does not find shelter. The only permanent shelter is at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So the soul hankers for that shelter. We all hanker for that. We not be satisfied. We are not being satisfied in this material world by our occupational duties. Hare Krishna Vaishnava Mataji. By whatever we do, we are not satisfied unless we're taking shelter, and Krishna gives us that shelter at his lotus feet. So we will be hankering, we will be seeking and seeking, we will be dissatisfied until we come to that point. And like Rashmi, you mentioned the other day, is that verse, after many births and death, eventually the Jnani comes to surrender to Krishna. So the Jnanis are also seeking Krishna, but they don't want to surrender at the beginning. It takes them many lifetimes to come to that conclusion through their philosophical speculation and search that Krishna is everything, and then they surrender to him. So we're not satisfied any other way. What else? Any other points? We have covered the selfishness from the animals to extended selfishness. That's an important point that comes up again and again. Extended selfishness goes even as far as I love all human society. You're still part of that human society, so even that is extended selfishness. Why not love every living being? Because if you love, you're a humanist, you love all human beings. Why excluding the animals, Ben?
The question could be asked that people they do pursue material knowledge, but that can benefit the human race. So you could say that it's not necessarily null and void if it alleviates some material suffering, because that's happening in the material world, because by the development of knowledge and understanding of different things, there can be alleviation of miseries and suffering in the material world. So that's a question that could be raised.
Okay, anyone can say something to that question?
Prabhuji, I also have a similar question. I just want to add to that. So if a soldier does not do his occupational duty, then how will people like you and me, there's a war happening, and in the middle of a war, how will we, if the soldiers don't do their occupational duty, then how will we be able to do bhakti? For bhakti also you need peace and You need peace, no? You need a full stomach. You need peace.
Yes, interesting question. Krishna and the Shastra or Srila Prabhupada doesn't say nowhere we should not do our occupation duties. So it comes again to that same point, or let me go to the Himalaya and sit in a cave, or let me just sit at home and not doing my occupation duties and chant all day long Hare Krishna. That's not the idea. But the occupational duties, according to Varna and Ashrama, they are meant to evoke the sentiment of bhakti, our attraction for Krishna. If they don't evoke that, then it's just Sharva-eva-hi kevalam. It's just a useless waste of time. I have here a little reading here, very interesting, about Varna Shankara, unwanted population. And that is a verse from the Bhagavatam. Quote, people in general will fall systematically from the path of progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagement of the castes and the orders of society and the Vedic injunctions. So here, the castes and the orders of society, that is the Varnashram Dharma. Castes is the Varnas and the orders are Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, and the castes are Shudra, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So the text says, from the progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagement of the castes and orders of the society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus they will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification. And as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. So Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to that, it is foretold herein that in the absence of a monarchical regime, the general mass of people will be an unwanted population like dogs and monkeys. As the monkeys are too sexually inclined and dogs are shameless in sexual intercourse, the general mass of population born of illegitimate connection will systematically go astray from the Vedic way of good manners and qualitative engagement in the castes and orders of life. Again, here we speak of occupational duties, Varna and Ashram. The Vedic way of life is a progressive march of the civilization of the Aryans. The Aryans are progressive in Vedic civilization. The Vedic civilization's destination is to go back to Godhead, back home, where there is no birth, no death, no old age, and no disease. The Vedas direct everyone not to remain in the darkness of the material world, but to go towards the light of the spiritual kingdom far beyond the material sky. The qualitative caste system, and Krishna explains, of course, in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam, that he has created. There's a special Bhagavad Gita verse, the orders, that caste system. Of course, again, if Nalini Mataji were here, it's not by qualification, it's not by birth, it's by qualification. So the qualitative caste system and the orders of life are scientifically planned by the Lord and his representatives, the great rishis. The perfect way of life gives all sorts of instruction in things both material and spiritual. The Vedic way of life does not allow any man to be like the monkeys and dogs. A degraded civilization of sense gratification and economic development is a byproduct of a godless or kingless government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people should not, therefore, begrudge the poor administrations they themselves elect. So I thought that was quite interesting because, I mean, this Bhagavatam has been written 5,000 years ago. And there the Bhagavatam speaks of not economic development, that the civilization should not go that way. So that means 5,000 years ago, the civilization, the Vedic civilization, had the opportunity of going down that path of economic development, with all, as he explained, what going that path of economic development and sense gratification, then it will lead to a Varnashankara population on a degradation, and society will just, the Varnashram system will be spoiled, and it will not lead to going back to Godhead. So they knew very well, they made a conscious choice 5,000 years ago. The kings, the saintly kings, and in the Vedic civilization, they made a conscious choice. We not pursue the path of economic development. They could have very well pursued the path of economic development. They knew about it, but they knew what the consequences are. And today, the whole world goes the path of economic development, GDP, growing economies and destroying the planet in that way. So if there would be a saintly leadership in society, therefore Srila Prabhupada was so adamant to create a class of Brahmins who could give that leadership eventually, that economic development is not the goal of human society. You don't organize a human society, a state, a nation under the lines of economic development. That's not. Organize it in terms of Varnashram Dharma. Organize it in terms of everybody following their occupational duties. If we come back now to occupational duties, these have to be done. But these are not meant for sense gratification. These are meant for pleasing Krishna and evoking attraction to Krishna, and on a progressive march, or Aryans, as mentioned here, back home to Godhead. So that was the point I wanted to make. Anyone else has something to say to that verse? Because we don't take another verse. We do a bit of Kirtan, but let's have any other questions. Does it make it clear, Rashmi? Yes, the occupational duties need to be done, but not for sense gratification, for pleasing the Lord. Straight Krishna consciousness. Whatever we do our occupational duties, in whichever ashram we are, in whichever varna we are, we do that to please Krishna. If we do it for economic development, then we're going to hell. So again, the consciousness has to change. Ben.
I just think it's a good point what you made about economic development, but at what cost? Because obviously this planet, there's finite resources, but all economies, all countries, they're all trying to create growing economies. So they look for higher growth year on year. And the point you made, at what cost? Because ultimately you can see the state the planet's in by this ideology of economic growth. It's ruining the planet. I just thought it was a good point.
Absolutely, it's a very actual, a very topic of the day. In this way, if we carry on with that, on that path of economic development and growing GDPs, the whole world, the climate disaster will hit us very hard, very hard. I mean, hard in the sense of food shortages, water shortages, and any other shortages. And eventually it will, the climate catastrophe and exploiting all the resources for sense gratification, for economic development, will eventually lead to the breakdown of society and the social system completely. Completely mess. Government will not be able to hold it together anymore. It becomes just wild. So, yes, that is all based in the very simple concept of, instead of economic development and sense gratification, the Varnashram system, doing our occupational duties for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or at least out of duty, at least. Not giving them up and sitting in the corner and chanting all day long, no. Whatever we are in a Grihastha ashram, we have to do some occupational duty. We in a brahmachari or vanaprashna, we have different occupational duty. Sannyas, they have different occupational duty. In the ashram and in the varna, we are acting according to whatever is our position. We have to act. But again, the consciousness has to change. Very often we read, and Srila Prabhupada tells us, is not we have to stop a particular activity, but the spirit of enjoyment, that has to go. That is ruining everything, the spirit of enjoyment. Therefore we say, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. We work for his enjoyment, and then we partake of the remnants. If we work for our own selfish enjoyment or extended selfish enjoyment, will ruin our life and will ruin the civilization, the society, the whole planet. So, yes, we don't know at this moment in time how the world can change course from economic development to something more sane. Even a little bit more sane, but time is running out. Okay, anything else? These are some very important verses. There are some very important concepts which underlying all the problems of today. Some really basic concepts, which if society could adopt those principles, it would be very prosperous. And people would be on the march back to Godhead. Shall we just chant a bit and finish off? Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, everyone, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe. Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radhe Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radhe. Jaya Radha Londonishvara, Radha Londonishvara, Radhe Radha Londonishvara, Radha Londonishvara, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jai Jaya Shri Radhe, Radhe, Jaya Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jai Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Madan Mohana, Radha Madan Mohana, Radhe Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radhe Jaya Radha, Gopinatha Radha, Gopinatha Radhe, Radha, Gopinatha Radha, Gopinatha Radhe, Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe, Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe, Jaya Radha, Ramana Radha, Ramana Radhe, Radha Ramana Radha, Ramana Radhe, Jaya Radha, Damodara Radha, Damodara Radhe, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara Radhe, Radha Shyam Sundar Radha, Shyam Sundar Radhe, Jaya Radha, Shyam Sundar Radha, Shyam Sundar Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Radhe Jaya Jaya Radhe, Radhe Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jai Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Nitai Sachizundar, Nitai Sachizundar, Nitai Sachizundar, Nitai Sachizundar, Jaya Nitai Sachizundar, Nitai Sachizundar, Nitai Sachizundar, Nitai Sachizundar, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Gurudev, Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nanda Guru Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Let us offer our most respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, such as like desire trees, and are full of compassion to the fallen and conditioned souls. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. That brings us to the end of our lockdown session, and well, we started small and we have now 7. So, good, nice. We missed you, Vaishana Mataji, but at last you came. Thank you very much for that. Vaishnav Mataji taught me how to make some tur dal, and now I'm quite addicted to making tur dal. I love every bit of it, but that's a different story. So I would like us, all of us, to think a little bit about that very last point we made, and the Bhagavatam made, and Ben brought up again, how Krishna consciousness is not just on our individual level, a change of consciousness. Actually, it is on a global level. It's on a level of society. If people would just get somehow or other this idea, I want us all to think a little bit about, and maybe some questions coming up, how the Krishna consciousness interfaces with what is happening nowadays, what is happening with society, what is happening with economic growth, where the whole world is going for that, and how, as a Vedic civilization, had a choice too. And it needs to be mentioned, needs to be underlined. There were kings like Parikshit Maharaj, saintly kings. They educated the citizen not to go down that route of economic development. Vedic civilization 5,000 years ago, they had the chance of going the same route we are doing today, but they purposely did not go down that route because they had good leadership. And that's missing nowadays. And there is so much more to come in our lifetime, what to speak of our children. Okay, we'll stop here, and we'll see you all back on Saturday. Hare Krishna.